Hey, before we dive into this episode, I just wanted to share something that I think is pretty exciting, and hopefully you do as well. I have a brand new 12-week intuitive eating group coaching program just for men called Equipped to Thrive. Sorry, ladies, this one is just for the guys this time. This program is for you if you're tired of obsessing over the food you eat, you feel addicted to food or certain foods and struggle with overeating or occasional binge eating episodes. Maybe you feel overwhelmed by all the conflicting messages related to health, nutrition, and fitness. Maybe you're tired of dieting, losing, and regaining the same weight over and over again. You just want to feel relaxed around food, whether you're alone at home, out with your spouse or partner, at a restaurant, a birthday party, work function, all of those kinds of things. Maybe you're interested in learning about intuitive eating and how it may be the right fit for you. And you would thrive in a diverse community of like-minded guys who share many of the same struggles and goals that you do. You'll get pre-recorded video course content to listen to at a convenient time for you, supplemental mini courses to touch on specific topics like performance nutrition and feeding your children and teenagers, weekly live Zoom coaching calls, private Facebook community, private email support, and you even get one-to-one private coaching session with me at the time of your choosing during that 12-week time period. Now, the inaugural group starts up October 3rd, so if you are interested at all, head over to hopedrivesme.com or check out the link in the show notes and get on the pre-sale list. Oh, and for those who join this very first group, I'm giving you a massive price reduction over the normal cost, just as my way of saying thank you. All right, so enough of the advertisement. Let's dive into the episode. We've all heard of women's intuition, right? Well, men have intuition as well. Intuition is so important when it comes to feeding ourselves and our families in our challenging food environment. This podcast explores a variety of topics related to a powerful, evidence-based eating framework called intuitive eating that integrates instinct, emotion, and rational thought. My hope is that it will help you finally break free of the perpetual diet cycle. This is the Men's Intuition Podcast. All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Men's Intuition Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Ash, nutritionist, personal trainer, and intuitive eating coach. And I'm excited to have another really helpful conversation today on this episode. So today in this episode, we're going to be talking about the challenges and bias that people in larger bodies face when trying to pursue fitness and changes in health, especially when they're not intentionally trying to lose weight. The pressures, the expectations that they feel to shrink their bodies to the culture's standards of what's considered kind of an appropriate size. You know, all those pressures are problematic, and we're going to be talking about that today. So we're going to address this topic by talking with another man and coach like myself who encourages others to pursue and achieve health without intentionally focusing on weight loss. And so that is something that you've probably heard me talk about on this podcast before, unless this is your very first episode. And if it is your first episode, welcome. You're in for a treat today. I think this will be a really good conversation. So my guest today is Joe Loye, and he is an educator and a health coach. He helps plus-size people achieve a healthy lifestyle through an anti-diet approach that emphasizes body respect and food confidence. So, without any further ado, welcome, Joe.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here. I love talking about this topic, especially because it's not a well talked about topic. And when we do talk about it, it gets people's fire going. And it upsets people. And so I'm really excited that you've invited me here today to be here.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Great. Well, yeah. And you know, it's one of those topics that we do hear it talked about in among women, I think some.
Yes.
But we don't really hear it talked about among men as much. And so I think it's really good to have these conversations, not just women talking about how men struggle with these issues as well, but a couple of dudes talking about it too, I think is a good way to, it's going to be a good conversation.
For sure. Yeah. Super excited.
Cool. Well, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into health coaching.
Yeah. So it was a journey. So I went to school to be a teacher. That was what my degree was in. I was working in St. Paul, Minnesota with the before and after school program as a leader and a supervisor. And one of the big parts of my job was coaching staff to work through struggles with behavior management, through inclusion, through just their own professional goals. And it was a part of the job that I absolutely loved. And to like, toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I was good at it. It was, I was good at coaching. And I started to just like, there was a point where I was like, just wondering, like, if there, like, what else do I want to do? Is there something that I would want to do more in this? Because this is the only thing I've ever known is working with kids. And I met a couple health coaches, and that kind of like started the spark. And then once the pandemic hit, I was like full blown into like Weight Watchers, and I was gaining a lot of weight quickly too. And because I was stressed, we were frontline workers, we were out in the middle of it. I was burning out quickly. And there was one day, I think we had pizza for lunch or something. Like we ordered pizza for the staff, and or it was donated or something. I can't remember exactly, but I remember basically saying like, no, I'm not going to eat it. I have my own lunch that I'm going to eat, because if I eat the pizza, it's going to push me over my points. Right. And I had a colleague who gently just asked me if she could talk to me about that. And we had a conversation, and that's when she introduced me to intuitive eating. And that's kind of what started my adventure into this like more health and wellness for myself, and this journey. And then that's when I found this company, this organization, this school that not only trains you on how to be a health coach and a life coach, but you also get to experience the coaching as well. And I got to experience the like being coached by someone to help me eat better and still enjoy the foods and stop restricting, and start adding more nutritional things into my meals, and just like setting goals too around my fitness and getting my body moving, and understanding that, I don't have to go to the gym to kill my body and burn every single calorie I've eaten. Rather, like, find movement I enjoy, and that puts a smile on my face and makes me feel good. And so that's kind of how I got here. And I'm loving the journey so far, because I say this all the time, because I feel like I'm on the journey with my clients. I think it's a journey that doesn't necessarily have a destination, and I'm excited to keep going on it.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you said that it doesn't really have a destination. And I think that that's one of the things that makes dieting and that mindset problematic. And it's also one of the things that draws people to it and makes it exciting, because you do have a destination. You have a number on the scale to achieve. And when you hit it, then you've hit your goal weight. But we know from research that it's not very likely that you're going to maintain it. And so then, that is this vicious cycle. And so you see the allure of it. But once you really get into this thinking in terms of a journey, and there's no destination, there's no right or wrong or failure with it. It's just a learning experience that you're going through and growing through that process and developing those skills. And it's just, you're just going and learning more about yourself and what works for you. Because really health there isn't a destination. It's not a journey from I am unhealthy today, I want to be healthy, and in 1 year from now I'm going to be, quote, healthy. I mean, as an example, I just yesterday had a bladder scope done.
Oh, wow.
And because I'm 50 now, and I have an enlarged prostate, as 50-year-olds often do. And so did the scope and so, my bladder is not healthy. So I've got to go have a surgical procedure done. But, again, and once that's done, am I going to then reach health? Well, no, I've got other things going, there's other things that will probably pop up at times. And so it really is this sort of spectrum. And so I think that's good to think of it in that journey point. What's different about a health coach than a personal trainer or nutritionist or dietitian, or these kinds of things that are out there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a coach is really just someone who is there to help you tap into this genius you already have. It's a lot of asking questions, a lot of diving deep into some of these like deep-seated, we call them limiting beliefs. But it's the beliefs that are like stopping you from actually being able to move forward. It's the, working through those beliefs that are sabotaging you every time you get to a point and you just drop off. Like I think of my journey, and something that always sabotaged me was that scale. I'd get on that scale and I'd see that number, either it went up or it didn't go down as much as I wanted to. And well, we're going to try again next week. We're done now. And I think a lot of people experience that too, of that self-sabotage, and that's my role as a coach. And I'm usually someone who has those resources then too. Like if it's to the point where you do also need to go see a nutritionist, I'm going to find a nutritionist that I think is going to work well with you and can help you move forward on that. If I think that you like, if it's work that's beyond what we're doing, seeing a dietitian, seeing a doctor for something else, I'm going to refer you to seeing those specialists. I've worked with clients where things have come up in consultation where I've had to say, I really think that you need to seek out, and I don't say it like this, but essentially like, I really think that it would be important that to work with me, that you also need to seek out either a therapist or a dietitian or a nutritionist, because I think that's what's going to help you. And then I'm there to help with the system, the accountability, and the implementation of the new skills that you might be learning.
That's great. That's an excellent description of it. And yeah, like you, I while I'm a nutritionist and personal trainer, I find that most of my conversations with clients, are exactly what you're saying. It almost has nothing to do with the specifics of the foods. We'll come up with some ideas and strategies around that, but it's usually very process oriented and just what can I do to work through this particular struggle. And often it has nothing to do with the food. Which is a big part of it, is helping people discover that these ideas that we have where we think that food is our problem, in reality, I mean, yes, it is, but it's really a manifestation of something else that's going on in so many cases.
Yes. Yeah. My mantra is that your relationship to food and exercise is far more impactful than the actual food and exercise that you partake in or eat. Yeah. Because I think it's those habits. It's health is habits. Health are habits. So, however you say that in correct grammar, but so.
Well, and as a nutritionist and personal trainer, I would agree with you 100% on that all of that nutrition science that I learned and all of the optimizing training and all of those things don't matter if you don't have the how when it comes to eating. And, in your description, you described yourself as helping plus size people achieve a healthy lifestyle through an anti-diet approach that emphasizes body respect and food confidence. So I'd love to break that down a little bit because, you didn't say anything about helping them lose weight. We've already kind of talked about that, or eating healthy, it's really focusing on that. But, I guess one of the questions I had was, do you help people lose weight? What if they do want to lose weight? Do you help them do that?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, because many of the people who come to me, that's what they want to do. They want to lose weight. And I am upfront honest with the fact that that is not my goal. My goal is not to help you lose weight. Do the people I work with sometimes lose weight on my program? Absolutely. I think that is... And if you read the intuitive eating book, like that is something that can happen when you start to align your body and heal your body. Again, it starts to kind of find its natural weight and the weight that it's supposed to be at. And that's what my program is meant to do. And it's really more about figuring out who you are being when you're eating. Are you in a stress state? What is your movement like? How can we get more movement into your daily and regular routine? focusing on small habits like just chewing our food. Like, are we
Mhm.
slowing down when we're eating our meals? Are we actually chewing, or are we just inhaling? So really kind of, I don't like to use the word ritual, but like some, like making those meals and those meal times more of a time that is like really sacred for you and your body.
Mhm. Yeah, taking them seriously, and that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I talk with parents about if I'm helping them with kids and teenagers is that help make sure your kids know that the eating time, whether it's a snack or a meal, is an important thing that needs
Mhm.
to that we need to
Yes.
focus on, because that's really the only way we can really tune into whether we're feeding ourselves enough or too much, or
Mhm.
uh, what makes
1000%.
us feel good, and well, and the satisfaction factor, that's something
Yeah.
where you really don't get that satisfaction if you're not at least connected to some degree with the food, like you were talking about. And chewing
Hmm.
helps with that. It helps you taste
Hmm.
it. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, talk a little bit about an anti-diet or non-diet approach. So how does that, what's that language mean, and
Hmm.
kind of why do you use that?
Yeah. So, and I'll start with saying too, like many people, when they hear me say anti-diet or non-diet, they hear like nothing healthy,
Yeah.
nothing nutritional. They think I'm saying go and eat a McDonald's meal for every meal of the day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm saying, right? Like but it's more of the idea of it's gentle nutrition. It's finding ways to add food in rather than take away and rather than restrict.
Hmm.
And it's um I had lost my train of thought. So diet culture.
Yeah.
Let's talk about diet culture for a second. So we have created this culture in our society and in our world that is so focused on the thin ideal. You are not healthy unless you are thin. You are not
Hmm.
healthy unless you look a certain way. And that's not true. We use BMI right now as a way to measure fatness. And it has been stated by the actual person that created the BMI in like the 1800s that it wasn't created to measure fatness. It was created as a tool to help with delegation of resources. And
Hmm.
it was created by a mathematician. And we're using this outdated way of measuring health. And we're automatically saying that if you don't fit into this certain number, then you're just unhealthy. And health is so much deeper than that, and it's so much more complex. And the diet culture is these fad diets, these companies that are profiting off of you wanting to lose weight and wanting to look a certain way and wanting to make that thin ideal, but it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
It's I think of like Weight Watchers was the most recent one was the most recent diet I was on, and it all I did was restrict. I met my points every day, but I went to bed hungry every day because
Hmm.
it didn't because I fit my points, but it didn't actually teach me anything about my body or anything about my hunger cues and my fullness cues, and um or like how I was even just feeling after eating certain foods. And so when I say an anti-diet approach or a non-diet approach, it means that when you come to me and you work with me, I'm not going to sit there and be like, eat this meal plan and follow these rules and follow these steps. In fact, I'm going to ask you to throw those out the window, and we're
Hmm.
going to work on trying to heal your body from that. And working back into figuring out, how do you feel when you eat a certain food? When you have that peanut butter toast, how does that
Hmm.
make your body feel? Pay attention to the sensations in your body. Pay attention to maybe some emotions that come up with it. Because, when we eat food, we do feel things, we do feel certain things. And so it's about coming back and paying attention to your body and the messages that your body is giving you, because our bodies give us messages all the time. And diet culture has taught us not to listen to those.
Yeah, that's so important. I know you talked about adding in rather than taking out, and
Mhm.
listening to your body, and I think those are those are such important aspects of this whole thing because, well, one, you find that when you start adding things in, when you realize, oh, this would be great to add in and it would round out my meals and it make them more satisfying and more filling and more sustaining. I talk about that a lot too. And that's where we can apply some of the general nutrition where we understand that, protein is satiating. And so it's good to include that in your meals and even your snacks. And then it carries you over better. But that aspect. And then let's see, now I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, so taking that additive approach where we're adding in different things and then also not when we're tuning in, anything that we cut out too, like myself, I've had to cut out a few things or at least limit, and it's based on how my body feels. I'm not cutting them out because somebody told me they're bad for me or because somebody said they're unhealthy. But, I mentioned earlier about my prostate issues. I found out recently I'm a mess. When I turned 50, I had to have shoulder surgery, prostate issues. And then I also went in for a CT of my back and found out I have a ton of gallstones that I didn't realize I had.
No.
And then it was like, oh, that explains why I can't eat Chicken Express, which is this fried chicken that I love, but I can't eat it anymore because it literally put me in the hospital one time. I thought I was having a heart attack. And then I realized it was this food. So I don't eat that anymore. And yesterday we ate some Mexican food and I really wanted this dish that is my favorite. But since I found that out, my wife reminded me, you better be careful with that because that's exactly what triggers this. And I said, yeah, you're right. But I still had a very satisfying meal. But my whole point in that is that restricting or cutting that out based on the fact that it makes me feel like garbage is very different than cutting something out because somebody else told me that I should cut it out or that I'll feel like garbage if I eat it. Because that's another thing that we get too is like, oh, if you eat sugar, this is going to happen and that's going to happen in this. When sugar doesn't do that to me. Yeah. Sugar is not a problem for me. I can eat a fair amount and I enjoy my sugar. So, so I love that approach in that way that you were describing that and that non-diet way of approaching it. And in fact, there's an intuitive eating principle with the rules, challenging the food police. And so now, one of the things I was going to ask you about was this whole idea of food confidence. That was a really cool thing. So tell us about that. I love that. It kind of reminded me of Ellen Satter has a eating competence that she talks about in a similar approach intuitive eating. So it's, helping kids and yourself become a competent eater, focusing on how we eat rather than the specifics of what. But that food confidence kind of made me think of that too.
Yeah, and I think this goes really well with what we were just talking about the gentle nutrition and kind of adding and taking away and a little bit of a story too. Like when I was on my health journey, or when I should say when I was like going through my health journey of all these diets and restricting and whatnot, I was afraid of food. I was afraid to go to social events where there was going to be food. I declined invites from friends and family because, I can't eat. I'm going to go there and I'm going to want to eat everything. Yeah. And then I wasn't going to feel good. And, this kind of that derail of, not wanting to put myself in a position where I couldn't control myself. And I say control in air quotes because it's so much more than that. And so I wasn't confident. There's this confidence around, being okay with eating that slice of cake and eating that piece of pizza and knowing that you are going to be okay. And that it's not, it's not going to make you gain all this weight and make you completely immobile from that one slice. And really healing that relationship, I think, with the food too, back to that idea of relationship, because we lose that feeling that we are going to be okay. I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
I love that. And that just makes that really supports and adds to those other facets of health. Cause you talked about how earlier, health is not just the food we eat and the movement that we do, but there's so many other facets to it.
Yeah.
There's the physical and emotional and psychological and intellectual and economic is even a factor, and social health and spiritual health for certain people, and all these facets of health, and we need to nurture all of them, because you can have the
1000%
perfect physical health to some degree, but if those other things aren't in line, your physical health is probably going to be damaged at some point. You see people who are in incredible shape physically, and yet because of the way that they're navigating the rest of their life, they end up with all kinds of problems down the line. Maybe not immediately, but when you don't sleep enough, when you skip out on all those social occasions and then have this weak social health, it builds up and starts to cause problems. So I love that confidence thing. I think that just in and of itself, feeling confident around food really helps you to navigate all these other situations. You sit down, you eat a piece of cake, and you enjoy it, and you don't feel like it's controlling you. And you also feel confident that if I want cake and cookies and a piece of pie, that's okay too, because 1000%. I have that. And, there are times when I do that, and there are times when I don't. And the reason I don't is because I know I won't feel good, or I'm just full, or I'm not in the mood. Do you find that when you work with people that sometimes they find out that either they don't like a food that they thought was controlling, or that they don't need as much to be satisfied once they're actually paying attention to it?
Oh, absolutely. I have worked with clients that once they start to really listen to their bodies, like they almost start craving some of those more nutritional value or foods more than the sugary and the greasy, and because they know, and they're able to tell themselves, I can have that, or I can have that later, but I don't want it. I don't want to eat that. And it's just a whole new mindset shift too. And I think along with that too, it goes back to the knowing your body and knowing what doesn't feel, what doesn't taste good. Like you in the chicken, like you gain that confidence to trust your body and know that when your body tells you something, it's probably right.
Yeah. Well, and we have all these mechanisms inside our bodies, which is always so fascinating to me, these homeostatic mechanisms that when you need more to eat, your body drives you to eat. And when you don't need more to eat, your body drives you to stop eating. And when you need rest, it makes you sleepy and this kind of thing. And, and when all kinds of different things that it regulates, but we have to pay attention to it, because we can ignore and suppress it. And that's what that dieting often does, is it trains us to ignore the hunger signals and to sort of be able to get through the day when we're actually really, really hungry, but we're able to sort of function kind of like a functional alcoholic type of situation where a person is they're under the influence, but they're able to kind of function. And I think that dieting often does that. And when people really start to step back and connect, they're like, wow, I never realized just how bad I felt when I was in this massive calorie deficit and trying to work out for an hour and a half a day.
I just said that the other day. I still have days where I all of a sudden have this realization of oh my gosh, I cannot believe I felt that way at one point, and that I was restricting these things or not letting myself eat these foods, and that I was just crabby all the time or tired and not understanding the reason behind why I was crabby and tired all the time.
Yeah. Well, a little example, just this last week, my wife's been in and out of the hospital the last 7 weeks, 6 different times she's been admitted for multiple days. But I was at the gas station and I wanted a snack, and I had a specific thing in mind that I wanted to get. It was on my way to see my wife at the hospital, and I going through there and I'm looking for it, and they didn't have it. And I could not find it, which was fine because I was craving that specific thing. But in the past, what I would have done was I would have just grabbed something else. This time, I wasn't really hungry. I just was craving this very specific food. It was a oatmeal cream pie. I wanted that. They didn't have it, so I left. And I didn't get one because I was wanting to eat it just for the taste, the sensation, kind of that emotional feel that it would give, which is 100% fine. But then when I
absolutely
noticed they didn't have it, I thought, well, nothing else is going to satisfy me in that way. So I'm just going to wait until, I was planning to eat again next. And I think that that's a really cool thing because, like I said, in the past, I would have just probably grabbed 3 or 4 other things and just eaten all of them because it was a stressful time. And so,
you find a different substitution, right? When really in this situation, you recognized it's not really actually about the food. It's about this specific food. And I'm like, again, that I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, for those not watching the video version of this episode, you're not a small guy.
I am not. Nope. And I will own it.
Yep. And you do own it on your Instagram. We'll give you a chance to plug that here. Well, actually, what is your Instagram handle, just in case people cut out early?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is at J Loye, Loye coaching.
Cool. Okay. So we'll give you a chance to plug that at the end too. But just in case people, sometimes people, I don't know why they would ever consider not listening to the entire episode, but there are people, believe it or not, who do that. So just in case. But anyway, so like we said, you're not a small guy. Is it safe to say that you're not always welcomed with open arms in the health coaching, fitness, nutrition space?
Absolutely. And I honestly, when I was entering this, I didn't realize it was going to be as difficult as I've experienced. People see me, on Instagram and just out there, one, owning the fact that I am a fat man. Like, I own it. I say it. I like it. That's who I am. It's my body. It's the body I have. That's it. And that I'm a health coach, and people are just like shocked that I'm a fat health coach. Like, I get people messaging me or commenting on my stuff, telling me like, how can you be a health coach if you're fat? It's that not understanding. And it goes back to that, like what we've learned in this diet culture, what we've been indoctrinated to believe about health and about fitness and about different bodies, and not understanding that people can have big bodies and still feel good and still be healthy and still have good health markers when you go to the doctor. It doesn't mean I'm eating everything in sight, or that I'm out of control, or that it's funny because those are the comments too that are the least helpful. Like when you tell a fat person that you need to lose weight or you need to eat less or whatever, like that, like, thanks. That's actually that's not how it works. But thanks for your unsolicited advice.
It's a far more complicated issue than what a lot of people think. This whole, whether, mechanistically, yes, calories that matter, the input, the output, but it doesn't work out like it does for a robot where you put in this or that. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that, or because it was very easy for them. What I see a lot of people in the fitness industry, because I think a lot of us get into it the same way you described. Somebody pointed you in this direction. You fell in love with this process. You're a good coach in another area, and you realize, hey, this is something where I could really make a difference in other people's lives.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to pursue this. And a lot of people get into fitness that way. I got into it that way. I started with doing bodybuilding.com transformation challenge. I mean, I've always been active and doing stuff, but that's kind of what triggered me and got me most interested in really learning a lot more about it, and then eventually moving in the coaching direction, and then moving away from that into a weight neutral approach a few years ago. But in any case, I think that's unfortunate, the way that people view that, or your body is your business card and all of that kind of nonsense. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, because you have you're in a unique position yourself as being a fat health coach, because there are other fat people who, and again, we're using this term from the perspective of descriptive. It's still hard for me. I have to be honest. It's still hard for me because being 50,
totally
because it was always such a negative thing when you called somebody fat. I'm having to get used to that. And anyway, that's another issue, but
well, and I struggle with it too. And I think that's part of like the reclaiming that word of like, and there are still fat people out there that don't want to call themselves fat. And I would never, I lean into that and would never do that if that's what they choose. For me, it's a descriptive word. I'm fat, and I'm reclaiming that word. So.
But you can relate with people who may not relate to me, because I've always been a relatively slim person. And so in some ways, I think I shared with you that my first wife was very large, and that so I've been around it. I've been able to see discrimination firsthand. In fact, I think her death was partially related to lack of health care, because basically she was prescribed Xanax for when she went in having shortness of breath and throwing up after going to the gym. And she actually had a fist-sized tumor in her chest. Oh. So, those kinds of things that a thin person, back to the Chicken Express, when I was having chest pains, they put me in the hospital overnight, and I saw a cardiologist. They had me on monitoring and all this stuff, because I was a slim, quote, healthy guy. But a fat person, a heavier person, bigger person doesn't necessarily get that same treatment. Typically, obviously chest pain, that's kind of a little bit different, but the case where the anxiety, knee pain, have you personally experienced any of that kind of discrimination when seeking healthcare or anything like that?
Yeah, totally. I was just thinking of how when I sleep with a CPAP, and one of the things that, like, when I was going in for it, one of the first things they said to me was, this could be solved by just losing weight.
And funny story here. I have sleep apnea. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea when I was competing at the national level in karate. So I was in really good shape, and I don't like to use numbers, but I was 5'11" and 165 pounds. That's far from big. And I was diagnosed with moderate sleep apnea. So,
and that's this is a perfect example right here of that, like, me just losing weight wasn't going to solve the problem, because I've also had sleep apnea. Like, I haven't always been this big. I was, when I was younger, I was smaller, and I've had sleep apnea since then. It just wasn't as bad until now. And I'm actually needing a CPAP. And I remember telling the I think they're called technicians, that, like, well, it's easier said than done. I've been there and I've done that, and just give me the damn CPAP.
Well, that's the thing too, is that the CPAP is something that can resolve the issue for you and give you the relief so that you can feel better, and that improves your health, where the weight loss might improve it, might not. Like in my case, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, it's going to be there whether I'm big or small. But you can control something. There is a behavior where you can put the CPAP on your face. Weight loss isn't a behavior. And so, but this is a good example of a health promoting behavior that you can engage in, which is to put your CPAP machine on at night, and that improves your sleep, which is going to probably improve all kinds of facets of your health.
It's so true. And I, cause like before the CPAP, I was tired all of the time, and eating more foods and more calories and whatnot, that wasn't solving the problem, because I wasn't like it wasn't about the food. It was because I wasn't getting the sleep, which does mean that I was hungrier because my body was looking for that energy. And now that I'm actually getting the sleep that I need, I have the energy to listen to my body's messages. I have the energy to go to the gym and get my movement in every day. Like it has, like you said, it's helped increase some of those other areas in my life.
Yeah. Well, and that's the stuff that you probably help your clients discover it through the health coaching is, hey, I've been where you are. I understand that aspect. Here's what, have you ever considered this? Have you given this any thought?
Yes.
And that kind of a thing. And I think that's, again,
1000%.
something where somebody in your unique position where you're equipped to be a good health coach and also that you have the lived experience that can relate with a lot of people. I think that can be really, really helpful because there's things that you may come up with that I might not. Now, like I said, since I've lived, for 15 years with my first wife before she passed away. With that, I understand intellectually a lot of the challenges that you have to go through, but I haven't been through it. And that's a very different thing when you've been through it versus knowing it or understanding it from the intellectual standpoint.
Yeah, 1000%.
Yeah. Another thing that comes to mind is when talking about coaches is how many NFL coaches are in this elite athletic shape, and yet they are phenomenal coaches in coaching elite athletes to perform at their best. And that's just another example of where it's not about what our body looks like. It's about what capabilities we have as a coach or a counselor or that kind of a thing too.
1000%. I say it on my Instagram all the time that my fatness and my body size does not determine my knowledge, my expertise, my worth, and my value.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Where does intuitive eating fit into all of this for you? So we talked about kind of some of the foundational things there, but how does that fit in? Do you coach your clients in intuitive eating specifically?
That's a really good question. So I'm actually not a certified intuitive eating counselor. A lot of just what I learned through my health coaching does have a lot of base in intuitive eating, and a lot of that stuff comes from that idea of intuitive eating. And so I use a lot of that stuff from my training, and intuitive eating is my favorite book in the food and health. So I do provide a copy of that book for all of my clients. And then as they're reading through it, if things come up that they need help with or understanding, I do my best. Otherwise, I do let them know too, there are actual intuitive eating counselors out there that can help you work through some of this stuff. And it is one of my goals eventually to be an intuitive eating counselor, because I think I believe in it. I believe it's, some people have said to me when I've explained it, well, isn't that just a diet? And I'm like, no, it's actually more of a philosophy and a way of being. And it's about healing too. I always love to say that intuitive eating is about healing. It's healing from diet culture. And it really is getting your body back to those natural cues and those natural ways of being that we're born to have and trust, but we don't because of the outside noise, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to say, I went through the certification process, and it is phenomenal.
I love that.
When you go through it, you will love it. And I was the only dude in
I believe it.
Going through it at the time. There's just so few. I'm part of the certified counselors and facilitators Facebook group where we all gather and share knowledge and insight and ask for advice and that kind of thing from other professionals. And I'm the only dude commenting in there. And so we need more guys in there, because this is not, so much of what we see on social media, and understandably so, because I think that the way society has really negatively hurt women and put this pressure from on their appearance on them so much that it's natural that they would be the ones kind of leading the way in this sort of healing your relationship with food and body. But us guys struggle with it too, just in a different way. In some cases, often the same way. It just manifests itself a little bit different, kind of in that bigorexia sort of where there's, or muscle dysmorphia and these kinds of things where not only are we focused on the lean aspect, but the muscularity. But anyway, the intuitive eating certification process is so great because you get to go through that. You get to connect with other people. Yeah, definitely. Highly recommend that. So, and I think just in talking to you, I mean, really, I've been following you on social media and now talking with you, I'm just really excited that you're in this space, and it's cool to see that. And I think that you're going to make a big impact in this space. So I'm excited to see that, and glad to have coaches of all shapes and sizes and interests and all of that, because that's what we have in the world is people of different shapes and sizes and interests
1000%.
And backgrounds and where they're struggling, where they're hurting, what needs healed. Some people don't really need much in the way of healing. They just need a different view, a perspective on fitness. And it's kind of like, that was sort of me. I wasn't really super damaged by it, but the new perspective, it just changed everything and just made it so much more relaxed and confident. that whole food confidence thing, that's a big one. So, well, as we're coming up to kind of toward the end of this, I'd love for you to share how people can get in contact with you, learn more about your work, and kind of anything that you may have going on right now.
Absolutely. So I am taking on new clients right now. And I would suggest finding me on Instagram and DMing me. I love that venue because it's easier for me to send like a video message or a voice message. I love to be a little bit more personal in some of that, just so people actually know I'm a real person too. Because I think, we're being sold so much on these platforms. And sometimes it's like, okay, is that person actually real, or are they just like, catfishing me. So I'd say DM me on Instagram, and all you have to do is just message me and say like, I'm in, and we can talk about kind of some next steps. So that's awesome. So what was your handle again? Just so everybody. My handle is at J Loye, Loye coaching.
All right, great. And
I always feel like I need to say more than that, but I'm like, no, that's it. There's nothing else to say. That's your handle.
That's all?
That's all. I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for joining me for this great conversation. I highly encourage people that are listening to reach out to you if they think that you'd be somebody who they could really connect with. And I think there are. I think there are people who are going to resonate with you. I just want to say as a slim person in this industry that you're welcome 100%.
Oh, thank you.
As far as I'm concerned, I sometimes feel like the outsider because
I can see that. Yeah.
I didn't have an eating disorder and, that kind of thing. But I just, I'll be completely honest. The what got me to say, you know what, I want him on my show right now is one of your posts a week or two ago. There was a couple of negative comments on there that were just nasty, and I was like, you know what, we need a voice for fat health coaches. That. I mean, so I may have to get you on here again sometime and talk about another topic.
Yeah, this was fun. This was so much fun. I really appreciated having this platform for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you. So until next time, thanks for listening.